going to evaluate this. So it's 64 to the power of 1/2. Now, roots are underneath the fraction, underneath the ground. Remember it that way. So that becomes the square root of 64 all to the power of 1. That sticks there. That number sticks. It does not move. And this tells you the roots, and that goes across to your root. So the square root of 64 is 8. 8 to the power of 1 is just 8. You don't need to worry about that power of 1. So that turns out to be 8. Next one. We want 64 to the power of 1/3. So roots are underneath the fraction, underneath the ground. So that becomes the cubed root of 64 all to the power of 1. Again, that number sticks, does not move. Now, we're thinking about the cube root of 64. I'm looking for a number that multiplies by itself 3 times to give us 64. So if we look at 4 times 4, 4 fours are 16, 4 16s are 64. So the cube root of 64 is 4, so it's 4 to the power of 1, and your answer is 4. Now you will get to know these numbers, okay? They're usually lower numbers. Next one. We want 64 to the -1/2. You cannot deal with a negative power, so to change it to a positive power, you drop it down to the denominator. So that becomes 1 over 64 to the power of 1/2. Now, we've already just worked out that anything to the power of 1/2 is a square root. It's the square root of 64. The 1 stays in the numerator, so it's 1 divided by the square root of 64 is 1 divided by 8. Next one is the negative of the cubed root of 64. So change it to a positive power, becomes 1 over 64 to the power of 1/3. That then becomes 1 over the cubed root of 64. And in the previous example, we know that 4 multiplied by 4 multiplied by 4 is 64. So the cubed root of 64 is 4. So the answer is 1/4. We want the value of 81 to the power of 1/2. Roots are underneath the fraction, so that becomes the square root of 81. And 9 times 9 is 81, so my answer is 9. Next one, we want the negative half as a power. Drop it down to the bottom, so it gives us 1 over 81 to the power of 1/2. And I know that anything to the power of 1/2 is a square root, so it's a square root of 81. The 1 sticks there, I'm not writing it anymore. Square root of 81 is 1 over 9. Next one, I want to do, for this one I want to do 81 to the 3 over 4. So that means that we want to work out the 4th root of 81, and the 3 to the power of 3 sticks there. So 3 sticks and the 4 goes over as the root. Now what number multiplies by itself 4 times to give us 81? It's got to be 3. 3 times 3, 3 3s are 9, 3 9s are 27, and 3 27s are 81. And again, with practice, you will get to know these. So it becomes 3 to the power of 3. 3 to the power of 3 is 3 multiplied by itself 3 times. 3 3s are 9, 3 9s are 27. So my final answer is 27. Next one is 32 to the power of 1 over 5. So that's going to be the 5th root. Right, it's the 5th root of 32 all to the power of 1. I know I don't need that. Now, what number do I multiply by itself 5 times to get 32? It's going to be 2. And we'll just check if I write that out 5 times. So 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8, 8 times 2 is 16, 16 times 2 is 32. So the 5th root of 32 is 2. Next one, we want to find out what is the value of 125 to the power of 1/3. So 125 to the power of 1/3 means the cubed root of 125. Cubed root of 125, what number multiplies by itself 3 times to give you 125? And it's got to be 5, because 5 5s are 25, 5 25s are 125. So the cubed root of 125 is equal to 5. We want 125 to the power of 1/3. Can't deal with negative powers, drop it down to the bottom. Is 1 over 125 to the power of 1/3. Roots are underneath the fraction, underneath the ground, so it's 1 over the cubed root of 125, and I've just worked out that the cubed root of 125 was 5, so it becomes 1 over 5. Number 11, I want 25 to the power of minus a half. Can't deal with negative powers, drop it down to the bottom, so it becomes 1 over 25 to the power of half. Anything to the power of half is a square root, so it's 1 over the square root of 25. Square root of 25 is 5, so it's 1 over 5. Next one I want to do is 25 to the power of 3 over 2. So that is the roots underneath the fraction. So it's the square root of 25, and I want to raise that to the power of 3. So the 3 sticks, that's a 3. That sticks there. That 2 goes to your root. So the square root of 25 is 5, so it's 5 to the power of 3. So 5 to the power of 3 is 5 times 5 times 5. 5 5s are 25, 5 25s are 1, 2, 5. Next one, I want 81 to the power of minus a quarter. So can't deal with negative power, so I drop it down to the bottom as 1 over 81 to the power of 1/4. Anything to the power of 1/4, roots are underneath the fraction, underneath the ground, so that becomes the 4th root of 81 to the power of 1. I don't need that power of 1. What number multiplies by itself 4 times to give 81? 3 times 3 is 9, 3 9s are 27, 3 27s are 81, so it's 1 over 3. Next one is 144 to the minus a half. So that one is going to be 1 over 144 to the power of half. Anything to the power of half is a square root, and the square root of 144 is 12, so the answer is 1 over 12. Next one is 9 to the power of 3 over 2. The root is underneath the fraction, so it's the square root of 9 all to the power of 3. Square root of 9 is 3, so it's 3 to the power of 3. 3 to the power of 3 is 3 3s are 9, 3 9s are 27. 100 to the power of 3 over 2. So the roots underneath the fraction, underneath the ground, so it's the square root of 100, all to the power of 3. Square root of 100 is 10, so it's 10 to the power of 3. 10 to the power of 3 is 10 times 10 times 10, which is equal to 1000. Now this one here is a fraction, but what we do is that's a square root, okay, so that just becomes the square root of 4 divided by the square root of 9. Square root of 4 is 2, square root of 9 is 3. Okay, so you're doing it as 2 different calculations, top and bottom. Right, next one is 16 to the power of half, 16 over 25 to the power of a half. Split it. So really, to the power of half is the square root, so it's the square root of 16 divided by the square root of 25. Square root of 16 is 4, square root of 25 is 5, so your answer is 4 over 5. Last one is 36 to the minus 3 over 2. Cannot deal with a negative power, so it's 1 over 36 to the power of 3 over 2. So for that one, we've got 1 over, the root's underneath the ground, so it's the square root of 2. So it's the square root of, 36, and the 3 stays there, and it's to the power of 3. The square root of 36 is 6, it's 1 over 6 to the power of 3. Right, to work out 6 to the power of 3, 6 times 6 times 6. 6 6s are 36, I want to do 36 multiplied by 6. 6 6s are 36, 6 3s are 18, and another 3 makes 21, so it's 216. So it becomes 1 over 216. Now, all of those questions you will be expected to do without a calculator, so you have to learn them all.